Dark clouds swirl over an ancient Mesopotamian city, the distant sound of war drums echoing through the streets. A scribe hurriedly carves cuneiform warnings into a clay tablet, his hands trembling. Outside, torches flicker as priests gather before a towering ziggurat, chanting desperate incantations to ward off an unseen terror.
Erra has awakened.
An elder whispers, his face pale with fear.
The god of destruction walks among us once more.
A sudden wind howls through the city, carrying whispers of war, pestilence, and ruin. Shadows stretch unnaturally, coiling like serpents around trembling figures. The temple's sacred fires flicker and die. Then silence, before the earth trembles beneath unseen footsteps. In the darkness, two burning eyes ignite like embers. A deep, guttural voice echoes through the void. You have grown too comfortable, too proud. You have forgotten fear.
In the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, where mighty empires like Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, and Assyria flourished, the gods played a central role in shaping human destiny. Deities such as Enlil, the supreme god of storms and kingship, and Marduk, the great protector of Babylon, were honored with grand temples, lavish offerings, and elaborate hymns of praise. Yet, among the divine pantheon, there existed a darker and more fearsome figure, Erra, the god of plague, war, and destruction. Unlike the benevolent deities who bestowed prosperity upon the land, Erra was a god of ruin, a bringer of chaos who thrived in times of conflict and suffering. His name, whispered in fear rather than reverence, was a grim reminder that peace was fleeting and that civilization always teetered on the brink of catastrophe. Erra was not merely a god of war, but a god of unpredictable devastation. He was known to wander restlessly, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash his wrath upon the world. He embodied both the relentless force of plague, capable of sweeping through cities and leaving behind fields of the dead, and the madness of war, where warriors would lose their senses and turn into beasts of slaughter. His fury was as sudden as it was merciless, and when he struck, even the strongest armies and the mightiest cities crumbled. Unlike gods who fought for honor, conquest, or divine justice, Erra waged war for the sake of destruction itself. He did not seek control or dominion, only the pleasure of watching the world burn. What made Erra particularly terrifying was his role in the balance of power among the gods. He was not a direct enemy of the great deities, nor was he a ruler among them. Instead, he lurked in the shadows, always waiting for an opportunity to disrupt the natural order. His greatest moment of infamy came in the Epic of Erra, a tale in which he nearly toppled Marduk, the supreme god of Babylon, plunging the world into chaos. His story is not just a myth, but a profound reflection of human fears, of war, disease, destruction, and the uncontrollable forces that lurk just beneath the surface of civilization. Through this tale, we uncover the nature of Erra, the terrifying god who ensured that no golden age could last forever. Erra's origins are shrouded in mystery, emerging from the depths of Mesopotamian belief as a god feared more than revered. He was often associated with Nergal, the god of the underworld, war, and disease. But while Nergal ruled over death as a force of inevitability, Erra was its unrelenting catalyst. He was a god without restraint, an embodiment of sudden and merciless devastation. Where Nergal represented the slow passage into the afterlife, Erra was the wildfire that razed civilizations overnight, leaving only ashes in his wake. This distinction made him one of the most feared and volatile deities in Mesopotamian mythology, a god who did not wait for death to take its natural course, but instead forced it upon the living with brutal efficiency. Unlike other gods who resided in grand temples or celestial domains, Erra was known as the wandering god. He did not belong to any single place, nor did he concern himself with ruling over a particular aspect of the world. Instead, he roamed restlessly, waiting for signs of weakness, whether it be a city grown too complacent in its prosperity or a kingdom too fragile in its peace. When he saw the opportunity, he struck without warning, unleashing war and disease in his wake. His nature was one of inexplicable destruction. He had no grand ambitions, no clear goals beyond the sheer pleasure of chaos. His presence in a land meant only one thing: suffering on an unimaginable scale. As the god of pestilence, Erra could send waves of disease that swept through cities like a divine plague, thinning the ranks of armies and crippling entire populations. In times of war, his influence was even more terrifying. He could incite madness in warriors, stripping them of their reason and turning them into uncontrollable killing machines. Unlike gods of battle who inspired courage or granted victory, Erra's form of war was one of pure, mindless carnage. Soldiers under his influence did not fight for kings, glory, or even survival. They fought for the sake of killing, driven by an uncontrollable bloodlust. But Erra did not act alone. His most feared weapons were the Sebetu, 7 divine spirits of destruction, who served as his harbingers of doom. These 7 beings were born from fire and chaos, each an aspect of annihilation: disease, war, famine, death, madness, fire, and terror. They moved at Erra's command, descending upon cities like a storm, consuming everything in their path. When the Sebetu were unleashed, no army could stand against them. No walls could keep them out. Their devastation was swift and absolute. In some versions of the myths, they were considered demons of the void, creatures whose sole purpose was to erase all that existed, acting as the executioners of Erra's will. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Erra was his unpredictability. The gods of Mesopotamia each had roles to play. Enlil governed kingship, Marduk protected Babylon, Ishtar ruled over love and war. Even the gods of destruction, such as Nergal, had clear domains. But Erra was chaos incarnate. He did not demand worship or loyalty, nor did he seek dominion over men. He was a force of uncontrolled ruin, an entity who could appear without warning, leaving only devastation behind. His name was not invoked in prayer, but in fear, spoken only in hushed whispers by those who knew that even the greatest empires were never safe from his wrath. The story of Erra's most infamous rampage is immortalized in the Epic of Erra, a chilling Babylonian myth inscribed on ancient clay tablets. This tale does not simply recount a battle between gods. It is a story of destruction so absolute that even Marduk, the supreme ruler of the heavens, falters in its wake. It is a warning that no civilization, no matter how mighty, is safe from the insatiable hunger of war and plague. The epic begins in an uneasy calm. The cities of Mesopotamia stand proud. Babylon, and their sister cities thrive under peace and prosperity. The great temples hum with prayers, and the people bask in the protection of the gods. But Erra is restless. To him, this tranquility is a disease, a festering stagnation that offends his very nature. He does not see peace as a blessing. He sees it as an insult to the natural order, an unnatural pause before the inevitable return of death and ruin. In his mind, the world must be cleansed, reforged in fire and blood. And so the god of plague and war sets his plan in motion. He approaches Marduk, the king of the gods, a deity burdened with the responsibility of maintaining order. Marduk, mighty though he is, has grown weary. He has spent countless ages tending to the balance of the cosmos, ensuring that the stars remain fixed in the heavens and the great rivers flow as they should. His divine regalia, the sacred garments and weapons that symbolize his power, have become tarnished, their luster dulled by time and neglect. Erra seizes this opportunity. With words as smooth as flowing water, Erra speaks to Marduk. "Great king of the gods," he says, "you are overburdened. You have carried the weight of the world for too long, and even the mightiest warrior must lay down his sword to rest. Let me watch over the world while you renew your strength. Let me safeguard your throne while you cleanse your regalia and restore their former brilliance." Marduk, exhausted and trusting, considers Erra's words. He sees no immediate threat. After all, Erra is but a god of destruction, not a ruler. He agrees to the proposition, believing that a short respite will not bring harm to the world. With that, Marduk steps away, retreating into his celestial domain, leaving the fate of humanity in Erra's hands. The moment Marduk departs, Erra reveals his true intentions. He does not sit idly upon the throne. He unleashes chaos upon the world, summoning his most dreaded weapons, the Sebetu, the 7 divine beings of ruin. Darkness slithered across the sky, swallowing the sun in an unnatural eclipse. The ground trembled beneath the weight of unseen forces, as if the earth itself recoiled in terror. The air grew thick, choked with the acrid scent of burning wood and the metallic sting of blood. Then, like a storm without warning, Erra and the Sebetu descended. Their arrival was not heralded by words, nor by reason, only by devastation. The fields, once golden with the promise of harvest, shriveled into brittle husks. Farmers dropped to their knees, helpless as their crops blackened before their eyes. The rivers, the lifeblood of the land, shrank into lifeless veins of cracked earth. Parched throats cried out for relief, but none came. And then the plague struck. It moved unseen, a silent predator slithering through the streets. Its fangs found men, women, and children alike, leaving bodies contorted in fevered agony. The dead lined the alleys, bloated and rotting beneath the pitiless sun. Loyalty crumbled like sand in a storm. Kings lost their crowns, not to invaders, but to their own soldiers. Armies turned inward, blades meant for defense now cutting through brother and kin. Cities, once the pride of Mesopotamia, collapsed into ruin, not by siege but by the hands of those sworn to protect them. And through it all, Erra stood at the center, his laughter lost in the howling of the dying. For a time, it seems as though nothing can stop Erra. He stands atop the ruins of the world, watching as fire consumes temples, as cities crumble into dust. He boasts of his supremacy, declaring that no god can match his power, that he alone holds dominion over the fate of mortals. He considers finishing what he started, wiping out all of humanity, leaving only silence where there was once life. But then something unexpected happens. His own counselors, loyal spirits who have stood beside him through countless ages, begin to question him. They remind him that there is no glory in ruling over a world reduced to ashes. If all is destroyed, who will remain to fear him? Who will be left to tremble at his name? Even the gods, watching from their celestial realms, whisper warnings. There must be a limit, even to destruction. For the first time, Erra hesitates. He sees the ruin he has wrought, the desolation left in his wake. And he wonders, has he gone too far? He does not fear punishment from the other gods, nor does he regret his actions, but he recognizes that his own power is now threatened by his excess. He has burned so much that there is almost nothing left to burn. And so he relents. With a single command, the Sebetu withdraw, their work complete. The plagues begin to fade, the rivers trickle back to life, and the fires smolder into embers. War slows, then ceases, leaving only the echoes of suffering behind. The cities that survive do so in ruin, forever scarred by the touch of Erra's fury. Marduk, finally restored, returns to find his world in ruin. He is furious at Erra's treachery, but his anger is tempered by relief. Order, though shaken, can still be rebuilt. The gods gather to mend what they can, but they know that Erra has left his mark. This was not a simple battle, not a war between kings. This was a divine reckoning, a reminder that even the greatest civilizations are but playthings before the gods. As the epic nears its end, Erra does not offer an apology. He does not seek forgiveness, nor does he beg for pardon. Instead, he issues a final, chilling promise. I will return. When peace lingers too long, when men grow too comfortable, when they forget that death walks beside them, I will come again. The world will burn once more. And with that, Erra vanishes into the shadows, leaving behind only the silence of a world that has learned too late that there is no such thing as eternal peace. Unlike the great deities of Mesopotamia, Marduk, Enlil, and Ishtar, who were honored with towering temples and lavish offerings, Erra's presence inspired terror rather than devotion. His name was not spoken in joyful hymns but in hushed whispers, uttered only when absolutely necessary. The people of Mesopotamia did not seek his blessings, they begged for his mercy. Where other gods demanded worship, Erra demanded restraint. His influence was an ever-present shadow looming over civilization. and his wrath was unpredictable. Prayers to Erra were not meant to honor him, but to keep him at bay. When war loomed on the horizon or sickness began to spread, his name was invoked in desperate pleas. May Erra's fury pass us by. May his eyes turn elsewhere. May his hand be stayed. To safeguard their cities from his chaos, priests performed exorcisms and purification rites, desperate to keep his presence from seeping into the mortal world. Clay tablets describe elaborate ceremonies designed to appease him. Offerings of animals, libations of blood, and chanted incantations meant to bind his fury. At times, entire communities would engage in ritual fasts, believing that by humbling themselves they might convince Erra to show restraint. Even kings, the mighty rulers of Mesopotamia, feared him. They inscribed prayers onto tablets and set them within their palace walls, hoping their words would serve as barriers against his devastation. In times of peace, they commissioned protective amulets and dedicated rituals to the gods of order, believing that only through balance could Erra's destruction be kept in check. Yet, for all their fear, the people of Mesopotamia did not see Erra as wholly evil. It was terrifying, yes, but necessary. The cosmos thrived on duality, light and dark, creation and destruction, life and death. Without Erra, the world would stagnate, its edges growing dull. His existence was a cruel but vital reminder that peace was fragile, that order was never absolute, and that even the gods themselves could be as merciless as the storms they unleashed. Though Mesopotamian civilization eventually fell, the legend of Erra persisted. The great cities of Sumer, Akkad, and Babylon crumbled, their ziggurats swallowed by time. But the name of Erra did not vanish. His presence seeped into the collective memory of humanity, finding echoes in later myths, legends, and religious texts. His domain, war, pestilence, and chaos, proved to be timeless forces that continued to shape the course of history. Across cultures and generations, deities of war and destruction bore similarities to Erra. Some scholars suggest that his influence can be seen in the wrathful war gods of later civilizations. Ares of the Greeks, Mars of the Romans, and Shiva in his destructive aspect in Hinduism. The very notion of a force that thrives on disorder, on the unmaking of worlds, recurs throughout mythology. In biblical texts, the apocalyptic imagery of war and pestilence, the horsemen who ride to signal the end of days, reflects themes deeply ingrained in Erra's own legend. Some even argue that later depictions of plague demons and chaos bringers, such as the biblical Abaddon or the Islamic Dajjal, carry echoes of Erra's influence, showing how deeply his shadow lingered over human fears. His legacy extends beyond myth and religion, into the cultural fabric of civilization itself. Literature, art, and historical narratives have long wrestled with the same themes he embodies: the thin veneer of order, the ever-present threat of destruction, and the fragile balance between creation and ruin. The stories of Erra serve as both a warning and an inevitability, reminders that peace is always fleeting, that chaos waits just beyond the horizon. Even in modern times, Erra's presence can be felt. The devastation of war, the outbreak of disease, the collapse of once great empires, each moment of suffering and destruction is an echo of his rage. Every shattered city, every pandemic that sweeps across nations, and every conflict that engulfs the world is a whisper of his presence, a sign that his dominion has never truly faded. The cycle of creation and destruction persists, and with it, so does Erra's essence. And so, Erra, the restless god of destruction, is never truly gone. He merely sleeps, waiting for the next time the world forgets his name. And when it does, he will rise again, as he always has, as he always will, bringing with him the fury of forgotten storms and the darkness of an unending night. The tale of Erra is more than just an ancient myth. It is a reflection of the fears that have haunted humanity for thousands of years. War, plague, destruction, these forces have shaped civilizations, just as they once threatened to tear them apart. In the silence of forgotten ruins, in the pages of crumbling clay tablets, Erra's legend endures. And as long as humanity continues to wage war, as long as disease continues to ravage the world, As long as destruction remains a force in the universe, so too will the shadow of Erra remain, waiting for the day when peace lasts too long and chaos once again demands its due. For destruction is not merely a force of the past, nor a distant specter of mythology. It is a cycle as old as time, a relentless tide that rises and falls, ensuring that no civilization, no empire, no golden age remains untouched. Erra does not create nor does he preserve, he reminds. He ensures that humanity never forgets the cost of its own hubris, that even in moments of triumph the seeds of ruin are already sown. And so the world moves ever forward, forever caught in the balance between order and chaos, with Erra's shadow lingering just beyond the edge of sight.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.